Hello, everyone. Welcome to the awesome day of FileMaker training. I'm here, Richard Carlton, with our ace help presenter here, Calvin Moseyman, who's too
Good
busy rolling
afternoon.
his. Oh, yeah, we both hear ourselves there. Very exciting day today. We are here at Pause on Air, but we are here, and while talking about FileMaker here, we're here to help you with basic FileMaker topics. We're very excited to see that. If you see me swatting flies and mosquitoes and other nasties away, that's just what I'm doing. So today is going to be a conversation about portals. Tomorrow is going to be a conversation I'll be covering on multi-user versus single user, and it has to do with kind of the idea of how data is saved to the server when you have a multi. If you have a file on the server, what does that mean? Well, the file's on the server, it's not on the client. Okay, yeah, the client accesses it from the server, but what does that mean as you add records, you delete records? Some of the questions came up yesterday, really good. We're talking about importing and exporting, if someone creates a record, etc. So a lot of these topics, I try to pick the best order to present them in, but a lot of times folks ask questions that make me rethink maybe the order should have been a little differently. So what we're going to do is I will cover the multi-user conversation tomorrow. Hopefully, if Margaret's coordinating with Jonathan, Jonathan can cover the conversation on reporting, beginning for reports and sub-summaries on Friday. So real quick, the conversation today is on portals. So portals, we've already had this conversation relationship. So I kind of expect a lot of questions. I really need questions to happen. Calvin and I will answer the questions the best we can. Between the two of us, we should be able to kill the topic pretty well. But this all ties back to relationships. So if you don't understand relationships, today is an extra day of discomfort for you. So if you have a relationship question, please ask it. Please ask it. If it sounds like trust me, just ask the question because if you have the question, I guarantee 20 other people who are here are afraid to ask the question. It almost always is that way, right? So please ask it. So first off, we have this basic idea of a structural idea of a database system. A database system is an organization of data, right? It's like, what is data? It's a spread. Just think of data as like a big wild spreadsheet of information. It's a spreadsheet. And then so what we do is we talked about a conversation. We're discussing what a table was, and a table is this collection of like data. So if we're tracking customers, then we might have a customer's table. So each record is a person, right? That idea. So over here on the solution over here, we have this idea of property, inspection, inspectors. What if we add people? So I'm going to go to File, Manage, Database here real quick. I'm going to bring that up. And these are the default fields that Claris puts in. I recommend if you're brand new, just delete these because they will cause more confusion than not. Once again, I very much dislike the way those fields were set up. But it's the way that some of the folks at Claris thought they might be useful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if we have inspectors, these are fire inspectors. I don't know. Do we have our favorite fire marshal? Is he here today, Margaret?
Yes, he is.
Okay, so last name, maybe their title,
Yeah, we want to make
and
sure that these are text fields.
oh yeah, look at that. I already screwed that up. See, that happened the other day because what it does, it remembers the last field type that you used, and then it uses that. So yeah, these should all be text fields. We talked about the type of fields. Once again, the type of fields are text is a string, a number is a single number, right? A date is a single date, a time is a single time. So I'll say change that. And so the idea that we have set up here, real simply, a table, these are the fields. And so then it gets this idea of what's a relationship. So as we have phone number, I'm going to put as text for now that could be a number, but the problem is it's a number with dashes and slashes and things like that in it. So it really is text. So if this is a table, so these are the tables: property, it's physical locations of where we're going to do a fire inspection. So say that Hot Air Balloon Can wants to open a restaurant, and the fire marshal goes to the Hot Air Balloon Can. He's another person on the live stream here, probably Kim from Albuquerque, New Mexico. And the fire marshal goes in there and says, "Hey, what are you powering your hot air balloons with? Should be hot air." And the Hot Air Balloon Can says, "Nah, we're using hydrogen to power the hot air balloons." And we've got piles and piles and piles of these hydrogen canisters, and they're all over the place. And we use them as you know, we use them as blocking dummies, tackling, we whack them, and hydrogen tanks are kind of, potentially flammable to say the least. So there might be an inspection, and an inspection might result in a negative note or a negative letter or some sort of deviation from what should be, right? Because if you have hydrogen, it should be protected. It shouldn't be in a spot next to the stove, the cooking stove where they're cooking lunch, right? Things like that. Calvin is a firefighter here. I have been a firefighter before. Sometimes firefighters are the worst people that comes to that kind of stuff, right? Calvin's grinning. I see him over there grinning at him right there. I'm looking at him. So the idea is that these are the inspectors, the people. The inspection is the event of inspecting where we find the hydrogen that might explode. The property is the location where Ken, the hot air balloon guy, is trying to set up a restaurant. Okay. So the issue is that we have these relationships that are cross-connected. So I've covered the table. The idea with tables, we're cross-connect. So if we have a inspection, the inspection and inspection could be connected to a property, would make sense. And you could also have an inspector that could be part of the inspection process too. So there can be connections here. In fact, you could say, a lot of times if you're understaffed, I'm sure a lot of fire departments only have like maybe one person do inspection, or maybe they might have an engine crew off of a station doing inspection. The engine crew, they don't have any 911 calls right now. So they're not out exercising and doing training. So they'll go do some inspections. I've done this before. I did inspections personally. We would inspect to make sure people didn't stack cords of wood up next to their house. So when the fire came through the neighborhood, the cords of wood didn't catch on fire, burn their house down. And we would remind them, being nice, courteous people, that probably that's not a good idea. So let's attach inspectors to inspections. And so if we have this field over here, we have this ID property that's inspection, but there's also needs to be a primary key over here. So every table has a primary key. If nothing else, it's a serial number. And so I'm going to go to fields here real quick. I'm going to go to the inspection. I'm going to say ID inspection. It's a text field. I'm going to say create that. In fact, I could go underscore and put an underscore and a P under here just to remind me it's a primary key. Could be handy. You don't have to do that. This name right here could be Doggy Blue 55. It doesn't matter as long as you know that it's a primary key for this table. So every record in the inspections table has its own unique value. So I'm gonna say create. I'm going to say auto enter options. I'm going to say options right here. Auto enter. Okay, auto enter right here at the top. I'm going to say I want to create a serial number, or we're going to start. I could put, since it's a text field, I could put it's an inspection, INSP inspection, and then we start with like 1,000, and then it'll increment each one by one. Pretty cool. So I say like that. That's good. If I go back to relationships, I have an ID of an inspection here, but I might have an inspector that's attached here, right? We might have an inspection attached here. In fact, how would you do this? You'd have an inspection as an event. So the event has an ID, right? Primary key, Calvin, right?
Yeah.
And
so the property needs to have a foreign key for the property and a foreign key for the inspector. And so inspectors doesn't have a primary key yet.
Yep. So we're going to go work on that right now. Let's do that right now. So I'm going to go to inspectors, and I'm going to create a new field. Click. I'm going to say ID. That's like the inspector, but it starts the same as inspection. So I'm just going to say ID. Well, inspector dot primary, the text field create.
And then we have to do an auto enter serial.
Yeah.
There we go.
I'm just going to call it PER or staff, right? We could just say staff one and just have 1,000 or whatever, 100, whatever, something like that. So because inspector and inspection both start with INSP, and it would be rapidly confusing. So now we're up to this. So now we have this primary for inspector, but we need the go ahead.
We need a foreign key in inspections. We need a foreign key in inspections for the inspector.
Okay.
So ID
Yep. Keep going.
Score F for foreign key.
Yep, ID inspector. So I'm gonna click out and create a new one here. ID inspector, right? Inspector, and then it's an underscore foreign key. So it's a foreign key. It doesn't auto-populate, right? It may have a value, it may not. A primary key always has a value, and it's always unique within the table, right? That's one of those things, right? Foreign key optionally could have a value in it. but a primary key must always have a value in it if you're using it correctly. So I'm going to say create. I'm not going to say auto enter or anything like that. So up here, the auto enter options, the primary key is auto enter. This property is a number format, so it has to be limited to a number. This inspector is a text, so it could be alpha characters or number characters as well, but they're foreign, they're not auto enter. Okay. Back to relationships.
Well, one other change here, property underscore F is a number. So we want that to be text in this for our use.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and change it to text. Am I going to do that? Okay, great. All right, back to relationships. So now we can connect the ID primary here to the inspector over here. And I guess we could move it like this and make it a little more easier. So an inspector may be attached to one or more inspections. Okay, and inspections right here, a property could have one or more inspections on it, right? That makes sense. So when you do an inspection, let's just for the time being say our model is a single inspector, a single person is going to pull up and they're going to inspect one property. So an inspection is going to be one city or county or government worker inspecting one physical location or building. Makes sense? So now we've set this up. So now we've laid the groundwork. So this is the relationship. So any questions about this part? Because now we get to the topic for today, which is the idea of portals. So we've laid this structure out. So here is the rub, is that I am an inspector. And Calvin's been doing inspections, but Calvin is a real shifty piece of work. I don't like him. He's not reliable. I would never hire him in a million years. And so to prove that he's not been reliable, I need a screen that shows me all the inspections he's ever done. Right, Calvin? Yes, I'm looking at you, Calvin. So the idea is that if you are over here, you're an inspector, I'm going to create a new record. I'm going to say it's Calvin Moseyman. All right, so then his title is questionable person is his title. Okay. Now his staff is 100. So we want to see if he's done any inspections. Well, let me pop a new window over here. I'm going to pop in FileMaker, a new window. Remember, you can have multiple windows open in FileMaker on your computer. They can be dialed into different areas. So I can see inspections over here. Okay. And then I could actually see the properties in another window if I wanted to. I could say new window and show me. Now you could script this too. You could have a script that actually would do this for you. Pop it up and actually locate them into specific spots. That would be interesting. So here is the property. Here's the inspection. So what I'm going to do is there was this inspection at McDonald's, right? And so what I want to do is I'm going to go to layout mode. And I like that rats part. I don't know where that came from. Maybe someone else did that. I mean, I like McDonald's kind of. They used to make salads. I love the salads. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag down. See, I drag and I hold the option key down or an alt key or whatever it is on Windows, and I'm going to make a copy. But the field I want over here is we already have the primary key. We have the primary key, ID property. We need probably the primary key for the inspection. So we have that. And so what I normally do is try to put the IDs together so that makes sense. So here's the primary key for the inspection. The foreign key for property is here, right? We've had this before. I'm going to put this here. So, because I'm going to let Calvin explain the next piece of this, I'm going to drag this down and I'm going to set the data up. So now we had primary key, foreign key, which might be filled in, foreign key for the staff, right? Basically the inspector, right? Inspector, okay. And I'm going to change the field here. Inspector key, foreign key. So if I go to browse mode, we know that Calvin's, we could see this a dozen different ways. We talked about this, but this is his related ID number here. So whether you can see it or not, you can't really see it. It's connected. So what I could do over here real quick is make this a little bit bigger. I could bring this over here. I could say, let's go through the relationship and show the inspector's first name, make it small, and then get rid of label and make it last name. So you can validate it's been connected. Okay. So maybe Calvin got wind that I was after him and he wanted to show how responsible he's been and how many inspections he's done lately. And so he's got one record right here. Let's create some other records. So then Calvin, he loves Taco Bell. Oh, that's inspection. Oh, we have the business over here. Oh, there's Taco Bell right there. So property ID is 100. So we go to property ID, we put that in. And then that keys off of that. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to move this over here. So this data, if it makes sense, through the relationship, it's showing you this data here from over here. Makes sense? So those two match, and then we can pull data across. Also, if I make a change over here and I say it's Taco Bell with 4 L's, then if I make that change, it's the same field that's over here. 1, 2, 3, click, it goes over there. So I'm going to say it's inspector. We can do Calvin again. I can say staff 1,000. Okay. Now I'm going to do one more real quick, Calvin. I'm going to say, give me another staff. I'm going to put myself in here. So that way we have, that there's other data. He's like a good person, right? Calvin's questionable. I'm good. That's awesome. My number is 1001. Calvin's is 1000. Okay. Now, if I come over here and I'm going to do inspection, I'm going to do inspection on AT&T, the phone, mobile phone, those people, right? And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say it's a new inspection. It's going to be on location property ID number 101, AT&T Mobile. Could have an address and a phone number and all that sort of stuff. And let's say that staff 1001 complete the inspection. Now, Calvin, why don't you walk us through the conversation of now we've laid the groundwork after 20 minutes of this conversation, bringing everyone up to speed here. What is the portal and how do we make it useful, like from the staff perspective?
Yeah, so the portal, I like to think of it as a window looking from one table occurrence through a relationship to another table occurrence and seeing the related records. So we're starting either in inspectors or in property, and we're looking through the relationship to see the inspections, to see those related inspections. So let's go ahead and say okay here and close the we don't have to save that. So let's go to inspectors, and I want to see all of the inspections this person has done. There's a portal tool in the toolbar. It's maybe a little over half. Yeah, there it is right there. And you can just add that, just click and drag, and then it gives you this dialog for setting it up. And we want to select inspections here. That's the one that we want. Yep. And then we'll go ahead and say okay. And now it's going to ask us what fields we want to do. In this case, let's go ahead and select the date. Yep. And we'll move that over, maybe the type. And then select available fields, because I just want summary information. And let's select property. And then the business name. So this will give it, and then you can change the order there, but we'll leave the order date, type, and business name, or you could put business first or whatever. Now you say okay, and it puts those fields in automatically. Now when we go to browse mode, we'll see there's the one for McDonald's, there's one for Taco Bell, and that corresponds with the data that we created in the inspections. And we can fill in the rest of and you'll see once we put in inspection information, then it updates that portal, and we can see that summary of everything that inspector did. Now we can do the same thing looking the other direction. It's a two-way mirror or two-way window. It's not a one-way mirror, and we can start from property. So let's go ahead and go to edit layout. We'll do the same thing here. We'll select the portal tool and create a portal there at the bottom. And now it gives us that same dialog, but in this case, we want to select, we still want to select inspections. Yep. And we'll say okay. And in this time, we're going to select the date and the type as well, because those are important fields. But the third thing we want to do is jump over to inspectors, and we can grab the first and last name. So now we're going to see the date, the type, and who it was. Now we go to browse mode, and now we're looking the other direction through the window. So we see, in this case with AT&T, it was Richard that did the inspection. And because there's only been one inspection, we're only seeing that one record through that relationship. And we can fill out the rest of the type and such. But so let's go ahead and select Command D, which will duplicate this record on the inspections. And what I want to do is create two. Oh, that was Command F. Command B for browse mode. Command D. And let's change staff to 1000 to staff 1000. And so, and let's put a different date in there. Oh, there we go. And so now if we go to, and that can stay the same, or we can change it to check something different. We check the ice cream machine. Oh, this is AT&T. Maybe they don't have ice cream machines, but
That's going to be a fail, but it'll be fun anyway.
maybe they have one in their cafeteria. So now we can see multiple. Oh, it looks like we duplicated it twice. So now we're seeing 3 different inspections here, performed by different people, and because we're looking through that relationship and seeing everything that matches that foreign key. So, powerful way of looking at related records through a relationship.
Now, what's important about this is that and this is a really important, and it's a major idea right here. If I take these fields right here, and I've mentioned this before, but this is a good one, and I'm going to duplicate them up here. So these fields, if they're outside the portal, what will they give to me, Calvin? What do fields?
They'll give you the first related record in that through that relationship.
Yeah.
So the first record created.
Yeah, it does that. In this case, did we put a sort on this, or what did we do over here?
Yeah, there must be some kind of sort or something. It's not on the portal though.
It must be in the relationship here. No. Okay, I'm very.
It's because it's because it's looking through the inspection as well.
Okay, that's what it is.
You'll see this is a good thing to point out though, because the inspector is 2 relationships away. It's grabbing the first inspector that was created, but because the inspection is 1 relationship away, it's grabbing the first inspection. So you'll notice that the inspector name doesn't match up with the date and the type. That's from the first inspection record, and then the inspector's the first inspector record, because both of those are valid through the relationship. And so you definitely, when you're looking through a relationship like this, you definitely need to be especially when you're comparing from 2 different table occurrences, you want to view them in the portal and make sure that they're in the portal.
Yeah. And that gets into the idea of lookups and things like that, where maybe some of this data is not live, but it's a lookup and it's a snapshot in time. Because you run into things where, like, if you change someone's name like Clavin, and we're like, oh, that's actually Calvin, right? And then you want that to be updated and changed everywhere. But sometimes you might change something, like say Calvin was a questionable person, or he was like an entry, maybe he was like a understood, like legitimate. Let's talk about fire. It'd be like a probationary firefighter, something like that. At the time he does the inspection, it probably should reflect his actual title, right? So here I just made the change. It made the change live. But if he did an inspection 5 years ago as a probationary firefighter, and there's questions about that, and Calvin's promoted up, and now he's a fire captain because he's really awesome. Well, the fact that I don't care what he is now. I care about the fact that at the time he did the inspection, he was this junior rookie detective person who maybe didn't know enough. So it gets this idea of, instead of having it live data, when you do an inspection, it's a snapshot in time, and maybe we write down the names of the people and the titles and the essential elements that, even if these people promote or the building burns to the ground, maybe the building burns to the ground and nothing's there anymore. So someone goes in there and says, oh, it's a picture of a smoking hole in the ground. And, and it's no longer a taco place. It's a different kind of place. Well, at that time in history, it was a Taco Bell. It was at this location. It was functional, and a junior inspector did it. So the idea of live data versus a lookup data, and we can show the lookup. I don't know, Margaret, if we have a live stream on that, but it's worthwhile talking about this. Understand that through this relationship, when we're looking at fields here, we're kind of limited to the fields that are, for the most part of either the current table or a related table. So you could have other things that are not related. They would be other tables. They'd be listed down here. That makes sense? So Calvin, you like the idea of the lookup conversation? Because that's really kind of where this is kind of at, right? The question is whether we use live data or lookup data. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I guess because that's not exactly portals, do we want to talk about master detail portals before we?
We have questions actually, so I would
Okay.
like to deal with
Oh,
those real
okay. Let's
Oh,
do.
fast.
now the
Let's talk.
questions come up. Hey, it's too late for questions. You're not allowed any questions. I asked nicely for questions. There are no allowed questions.
Why do you create a foreign key inspections and table inspectors and foreign keys for inspections and inspectors in the table property? Question mark.
I believe the question was why don't we have a foreign key in property for inspectors? Is that why? Is that the
I'll
question?
rephrase it real fast, make sure we both understand. Would you create a foreign key inspections and table inspectors and foreign keys for inspections and inspectors in the table property? So,
Well,
Yeah,
here's the
so I
deal
don't-
with foreign keys, and I'll take a swing at this, Calvin, and you can try to clean up my mess. Is that this is you're going to have one record ever for a proper. I mean, let's talk about this from a business side. Forget databases. Think about a property. This is Taco Bell at the corner. Okay, they're going to probably be inspected once a year at a minimum. So every year there's going to be a new record here. So there'll be one record here. There'll be probably different inspectors here. They come and they go, but that property is going to be kind of locked in there. And so, but every year there'll be a new record in here. And so if you put a foreign key over here and you put in the person's name or the inspection information, then the next year, what would you do? Right? It's you have the foreign keys on the how would you explain it? On like events?
So the use case is that we're going to have multiple inspectors going to the same property for different inspections at different times. We don't want it to be tied to one person. So we wouldn't put that inspector foreign key in the property. We'd put in the inspection because each inspection has a one inspector. And if you were assigning, say, you wanted to assign a property to one inspector and he's going to keep returning to that property, you could put one in there. And then you could have it so that when you create an inspection for that property, it automatically enters the assigned inspector. And then that would just be and when the inspector changes, you could update that property information to the new inspector ID. There is a use case for that. But as far as tracking the inspections, you wouldn't want to, the inspections are where that inspector foreign key really belongs in this use case. So you could find other scenarios, but for the one that we're demoing, it makes most sense to have the foreign keys in the inspections and not in inspectors or property.
Other
there's
questions?
more questions. So you don't
Yes.
have to add the field ID in the portal.
No.
No.
Yeah, the portal is operating. So once we set that, the portal is running through this relationship right here, right? So it already knows what it's using for the IDs to run the relationship. So when we talked about relationships the first time, we talked about bridges, right? The bridge, the left and the right side of the bridge. We've established the bridge. The bridge is here. Doesn't mean anything drives over the bridge. Just because the Department of Transportation or the builders build a bridge doesn't mean anyone's going to use it, right? But if we use a portal or fields over here, then we start putting traffic across that relationship, right? So we don't have to put the keys and things over here. This portal is already attached through the relationship. So it's important to understand that when you are, it's like the little Lego, it's like gets back to the anchor buoy kind of conversation. It's important to understand if you're on a layout, say, let's take it from the side of the inspector over here, right? So I'm gonna discard that. If you're over here as a person, it's very important to understand that where your position is. So in this portal, this layout, if we put a layout or a related field on this portal, the relationship is starting with the inspector and so that's it is looking through that relationship. So I have in my graphics when we do the live streams or some of the video training, we had the little Lego head. So if we go back to field definitions right here, I'm going to flip this around to match the windows. So I'm going to change this around. Nothing is broke, but now this now matches, I think, so we have fire marshal, which are the inspectors. In the middle is the inspections on the rights of property, right? Does that make sense? And so now it makes sense. So the idea is that, and Calvin, if you want to jump in, but the idea is that you can only see through this relationship. The little Lego guy's head's right here. You're right here at this time. You're setting this up, so you can see through here, and
Mhm.
through this connection, you can see whatever was over here. If you're a brand new beginning developer, so a lot of your connection should only be a parent and a child, right? If
Mhm.
you're on this side, your Lego person is looking back through this way. So it's parent on this side, child over here, grandchild. So relationships generally in the world of FileMaker are bidirectional, which means they go both ways. They can operate both ways. They don't have to, they can.
And another thing to think about here is that that portal is defined by the relationship, not the fields in the portal. And if you sometimes, so this is what's defining how that portal works. You can put any field you want in the portal. You could put, if you put a field from the parent table in the portal, you'll just see it repeated as many times as there are records in the portal. And that might be something to look at just to see how that happens. So if we sometimes you want to build you want to just see what break things and see what happens. But if we drag maybe the first name into the portal from the parent table, yeah, let's just drag that in there. And now and we'll say okay.
Now that once again, that's a clue what the parent table is. That's the current table, right?
Current
That's
table.
where you're at. That's where your little Lego person's at, right? There we
Mhm.
go. Select that, and then its first name. Now it's off the portal, which has interesting behaviorals. So I'm just going to start with this on the portal. Okay, and there's a little first name up here label. So
it's on top in the what is it called? The object tree. It's the name is above the portal, but it's not actually in the portal. As we can see, it's not repeating. So let's go ahead and go back to layout mode.
Okay.
And we might look at that in the object tree. You'll see that it's right there at the top because it's one of the newest things. But it's not inside the portal. So let's go ahead and just select it. And now arrow right and arrow left. Yeah, we have the label.
This one.
Stuff. Yep, there. Now
the label's actually in there, right? I think
so
it's
now it just jumped into the portal. Just now.
Oh, well, it wasn't in there? Okay, I missed that,
Yeah.
Calvin.
So
Okay. So, stop. Cover this again because this is a subtle thing what just happened. I didn't even catch it. And then in retrospect, I realized what I had done, right? So,
yeah, so we created a new field and it was hovering above the portal in the object tree. So you can see.
Now it's out right now. And then if I drag it and it's half in and half out, as far as FileMaker is concerned, half in and half out is out, right? Yes.
Right. It's not actually in that portal yet.
So now it looks if I move it in here,
it's still out.
It's still out. So resizing it in doesn't work. You have to actually resize it in and then jiggle it with the cursor like that, and it realized it. Or you would to grab it, move it out, move it back in, and then you see right there, it's now in part of the portal. That makes sense? Yeah. That's a great tip, and we did it quite by accident. This is one of those subtle things that drives people bonkers. But if you want to make sure that you're looking at something that is inside the portal, like so the behavior, here's the same field. And if I move it, so if I'm out here, it's out of the portal. If I make it long, it's here, right? And I'm going to get rid of date for the moment here. And I'm going to grab this. I'm going to option drag it. It's outside. It's the same field. And now I'm going to put this one entirely inside. Okay. Then look at the behavioral differences, right? So if it's inside, it's going to repeat it because it's inside the portal, and it doesn't make sense, but it kind of the way this is here. This one's outside the portal, so it's like it doesn't even attach to talking to the portal at all. So this has to do with slide objects, tab controls. This is a grouping behavior kind of conversation, right?
Yeah, and so in this case, because this portal is looking through the relationship, when we put that parent field on there, we're just seeing the parent data 3 times, which doesn't make any sense. But what we're showing here is that the fields within the portal don't define the portal. It's the relationship.
Good. Excellent. Yep.
Now,
the fields that are in the portal, it's a relationship. Yep.
Yeah. One interesting thing though now is to change if we go to layout mode,
Mhm.
and we'll see how this changes. If we change the portal from inspections to inspectors, so now we are in the current table. We changed it to inspectors. Now you'll notice all those options grayed out. And that means that this is a master detail portal, or what we call a master detail portal.
Yep.
And it takes the whatever we're doing in the found set. So now if we go to browse mode, we'll see that name, instead of repeating because it's in the current table and the fields from the current table, we are seeing the different inspector names. And by clicking into the portal, you can change the selected record.
Let me bring this up. People don't understand what this is. This right here is starting point. If you go over here to contacts and I hit show all, this is the idea of this master detail portal. So it's a portal where as you flip records over, it's like a narrow list view. That's what the master detail is really useful for, is giving you an on-screen list view. And then as you click on things, then this is, the local data. This is just a portal that's part of this. If I go to layout mode, the most simple layout that you'll end up building is something that looks like this, right? This is the typical FileMaker layout as you flip through people, right? And then you have a list view that you can view, things like that. But then what people will do sometimes, like Nick Hunter loves this, is to put the master detail portal on here. And that way, as you don't have to go to, because I have a separate list view, you could go back and forth between the two, right? Or you could just stay on the same screen, and as you click, it updates over here. So that's what the master detail portal is about. It was a fairly new construct in the world of Claris, I don't know, about 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Can you relate to more than one key?
That's an interesting conversation. So you can do it two different ways. You can do a combination key, right? Where I'm just going to lose FileMaker here for a second. If I come over to this relationship, I could say maybe that we're using a primary key, but maybe your key is going to be the person's first and last names together, right? You could have your first name matching the first name and the last name matching the last, and you could have two fields down here matching two different fields down here, or maybe a ID with a date. You could have like a relationship that shows you all the dates or all the days. Lots of things you can do with a combination, two fields at one time. And I'm just going to leave it at that unless you want to say something, Calvin.
So I think what that they're saying is, can you have multiple foreign keys in a field? Or at least that's how I interpreted the question.
Yeah, I didn't know if I wanted to get into multi-predicate value lists in a field, Calvin. That's a bigger conversation.
Technically you can, but you wouldn't want to do it in this scenario. Maybe we should have a session where we talk about that. I know Nick has talked about it before.
Oh, I've talked about it in our basic training before. Okay. I just have to figure out. There's so many things we could talk about here.
Technically it's possible, but we're not. Maybe we shouldn't. We could have a whole session diving into that.
Yeah, I don't think we can cover it in 15 minutes. So,
is the table inspections a joint table?
This is a great conversation. I did not do this conversation. I let Calvin do this. Calvin, when you talk to these nice customers that we have on the live stream, do you explain to them that I hate the word join table?
I actually said you hate the word join table.
And I understand why people do it. And did you explain the rationale of why I hate it?
Yeah, so the rationale why we don't like to use the word join table is because it doesn't really tell us anything about the workflow. It doesn't tell us about the problem. It doesn't really describe the situation. Now, technically, this is a join table between the inspections table is technically a join table.
It is. It's absolutely a join table. But let me back up. I just wanted to make sure that you weren't giving them a different message. Like join tables are wonderful. Join tables are absolutely essential. Here's the deal.
They are wonderful. We don't call them
join table because to understand, to build a solution, you have to understand all the moving pieces of a business. Database people, and I'm not picking on us, we've all done this, tend to use this word join table when we sense that there's something supposed to be in there collecting foreign keys, but we don't know what it is. So we say, it's a join table. If you map out the business fully and you're talking to people and you feel like there's a join table in there, you need to go interrogate the customer more, put a spotlight on them. This is law and disorder. We're going to waterboard the customer, right? pour water in their face, make them scream until they give us how their business works. If you get all the information, then you would understand that the inspectors, they go and they visit. If someone says, hey, they go in and they visit a property, and then they say whether the property's good or not, okay? And that's your explanation. Then you start digging into it. And like, well, the inspectors go there. Yeah, they tell us the property good or not, safe or not. And then you're like, well, is there more to it? And then you get the rest of the story. The rest of the story is, oh, yes, there's this form that we fill out. Oh, I haven't heard about this. What is this form? Oh, it's a piece of paper. Oh, what's a paper called? Oh, it's called an inspection. And we fill out the person's name and date and location and GPS and take pictures and all this stuff. Like, aha, the missing piece. A lot of times there's almost all the time, there is a missing piece of the conversation that you have to the customer didn't think it was important. They thought it was simple. They thought you knew it already as a developer. You have to kind of interrogate and get the business understanding at a real visceral level for you. Then you understand, yeah, it's a join table technically, but there's a business name or process wrapped around it. The inspection is easy. All of us can imagine some person coming up and inspecting the building and saying, yes, it's safe. No, it's not safe. No, it must be condemned. You have to fix these things. It's a common sense. Some of them are really obvious like this. Some of them are a little more subtle, and it takes a little bit more conversation with the client to figure out what this is, Calvin, right?
Yeah. And if the best name that you have for a table is join table, it means you need to ask some more questions and listen to some more answers and figure out what that really is.
Waterboarding is optional. You don't have to do that, but I just think that, yeah, this is the law and disorder. That would be the disorder part of the show.
Yeah. And one thing, sometimes I went to a client one time and they said, well, tell us what you need to, you're the consultant. You need to tell us what to do. And it's like, I have no idea what you're doing. You got to tell me a little bit what you're doing, and we can look for those opportunities to make things better. And so you really need to get your client talking, and or maybe if you're the client, you need to think through what you're doing and figure out what that name is.
Yeah, I would say and having Calvin, both of us here at the same time, is a really great thing. I would say that you need to, even if the customer's embarrassed, oh, I'm embarrassed that we're doing it this way. Oh, we use Post-it notes. Oh, we just scribble on our desk. We write it. I have a Sharpie. Sometimes I'll write something on my hand because I'm that desperate. I've done that. Admit to how your business works. Feel free to tell us how it should work better. As a developer, then, or if you're the developer, you have to decide which side of the fence you're on. But how does the business work now? And where they're because a good developer like Calvin, who has 15, 20 years of experience, will see opportunities to improve it, but he needs to hear from you how it works and actually what parts of it you like. Maybe a part that we think is really dumb or a waste of time, you really personally enjoy, in which case we wouldn't want to remove that, right? If you really like meeting, say, for example, you really like meeting people for the inspection and talking to people and shaking hands. If my wife did the inspection with people, she's kind of an introvert. She would prefer never to see anyone on the inspection or talk to anyone. So she might build a system that removes the human interaction from her. I'm picking on her, and she's, of course, bobbing her head up and down and agreeing with me, right? So it's figuring out the way your business works now, how you would like it to work better, and then your developer with some experience will be able to give you some guidance on how to even things we've seen other companies do, right? Calvin's worked for a bunch of companies. He works for Hollywood, business, law enforcement, all sorts of places. And he would say, well, over here with this organized crime group that we did this database for, they did this other thing, XYZ, and barcoding and whatever, and near field communications tracking. So when they went into the drug lab, they used a smart card to zap the thing to do the near field communication, unlock the door to open the building up. Right? I mean, being completely serious. I don't know if Calvin's actually built that solution, but if he hasn't, he should. Right? So,
is table inspections a cross-reference table? ?
Someone exceeded my vocabulary.
I think that's a Nick Hunter. The only person I've heard use that name for a table is Nick Hunter, and he's essentially, it's his name for a join table.
Yeah. So Nick's using non-standard vocabulary.
Verbiage.
Yes, it would be a cross-reference table.
Okay.
So, are there vertical portals? ?
I think the question is, they are vertical. I think the question is, are there horizontal portals?
I made a request of Claris of that about 2 years ago and said, hey, it's only been 30 some odd years. It was like crickets. No sounds came out of the
From what I
building.
understand, that would be a very difficult feature. Well, you know what? You can rotate things.
Well, not just that. You could you
Hey,
could
let's
cook a calculation with the nth record, right? You could roll your own, Calvin.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
usually I have done like a horizontal, it's not a real portal, it's a horizontal portal. So maybe go ahead and cancel out of here and I'll show you how that would be done.
Okay. You want to show it on your screen or you just want me to keep going over
Well,
here?
you have the sample file, so I'll just walk you
Okay.
through it.
Okay. Tell me what to do.
So go into layout mode,
On which table?
either one,
Okay. Layout mode. Here we are. We're on
and
layout
then
mode.
select the portal.
Get rid of it or
No, double click the portal to see
okay,
the
double
option.
click it. Here we go.
And so here it says number of rows. Oh,
Mm,
go ahead and select, instead of the current table being inspectors, can you change it to a related tables? Sorry about
yeah,
that. So
inspections. There we go.
So
Yeah.
now we have these options, and you can say the initial row and you can say number of rows.
Yeah.
So if you want to have the horizontal portal before across, you can do yeah, there we go.
Oh
There we
yeah,
go.
the first name doesn't make any sense. Sorry, that one's dumb. All right, so we got type
The
and then we had
business name and type, that's enough.
yeah. Oops, sorry. All right, so I'm going to make this much narrower. Okay, and it's got a vertical scroll bar on it. I'm going to disable the
Yep, I
vertical
want that.
scroll
Yeah, that's
bar.
perfect.
Okay, great.
Okay,
So
now
then we got this. So then this is the first related record, right? Because if we double click it,
yep,
it's one of one.
initial
Okay,
row
so
is one.
then we would go and command duplicate it, and then once again you could snuggle these up together much tighter.
It's the initial
Initial
row
row
two.
2 and show 1, right? And then you could I guess duplicate it again, and then there's 3, right? So is this easy? It's not the hardest thing on the planet, but it is
And
what it is,
if you
right?
make any change, you have to make it as many times. So it's not something I do all the time, but it's something you can do. So you'll see how that's kind of a horizontal portal. There's no scrolling. It's a little bit of a hack.
Ah, it's a hack. A hack.
Okay, next question. How would you sort the portal in the inspector's layout by first name? The portal is based upon inspections, but the field you added to it is from inspectors? Question mark.
Yeah, so let's go back over to the AT&T layout or the
What I would do for me, Calvin, I would make a lookup in here, right? And first
yeah.
fix that data. So and so we're rapidly running out of time on this. But the conversation
So
should really
there is a way
continue.
you can do it though. So if you select the properties
Okay, properties.
and go into layout mode, and we'll double click inspections portal, and we'll sort. I'm sorry, cancel. So it will only show you sort options from the current table, but if you select say show records from inspectors and say sort records, and then we'll grab the
First
let's
name.
grab first name, yeah, and say okay. And now change the we got to change that back to
Yeah, I'm gonna get rid of that. Okay, I'm gonna go back to that. Go back here. We're gonna
we
change
gotta
it
change
back.
that back to inspections.
Okay.
So again, it's a little bit of a hack. We'll say okay
Okay.
in browse mode. And now put my name at the top.
Your name's at the top right now, right here.
Well, that's because we sorted it. At first, it was
Okay.
at the bottom.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's again a little bit of a hack. And you'll get better performance if you use a lookup field.
Yeah, it's an issue where it's a broader set of questions here, but trying to sort from distant foreign, from a grandchild is a little bit harder. But yeah, you can do that. You can absolutely, the sorts can be applied in 2 places. The sort can be applied at the portal level here. So if I double click it, you can sort here. There's only 2 places you can sort. So if you're in here and you say, hey, there's a sort function up here under records, and I can say sort. This has nothing to do with anything but the parent table on the layout you're on. Okay. So if you want to sort the related data 2 ways and only 2 ways, you have to do it through this dialog here, or you do it on the relationship. Okay, so you can come to the relationship, you double click it, and you say sort. And so the sort's down here on this relationship. Okay.
And if you do it in both locations, the sort on the portal will
take precedence. Yeah, that's a test question on the certification test. It'll take precedence. It's also a little faster if you do it through, I think, the relationship over here. I think there's a little bit of a performance boost from that. It's a little bit faster. But yeah, I mean, you could definitely sort all this stuff. I think the hardest part is people wrapping their head around their business models. When we did this training last year, we were talking to some people who were in school districts and things like that. Another lady a year before who was running a travel business, right? And trying to understand travel pack. People went on travel trips, but the trip was part of a travel package where they visit 5 countries and this whole, long endeavor, right? And trying to get her to map it all out. And once she mapped it out, she understood the FileMaker part of it became a lot easier. I think a part of it is just trying to understand, really, you built the business or someone built the business or organization has a process. They built that process. How does that work? How does it really, really, really work, right? And if you don't know, that's the first thing you need to learn before you start trying to build software. It's a good topic. It's a good question. We're happy to do more, talk about more of this. Tomorrow is the conversation on single user versus multi-user. And I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about, well, not a lot of time, a little bit of time talking about globals. And then we're going to spend some time talking about the idea of as you make an edit and that record commits, what does that look like, right? And how other people are notified that you've made an edit, right? What does that look like, right? Calvin, I'm going to need your help for that. You okay with that?
Yep.
We'll get you a little bit closer to the building for that for
I'll
internet
bring a headset so I can sit next to you.
Well, you could do it that way too, yeah. So just sit next to me. So yeah, good stuff. So Margaret, anything else? We have questions on this one?
Nope, I think we're good for the moment. So.
Okay, good. Well, I'm really happy it didn't rain on me here. It's clear skies, but then there's these rain-looking clouds that are threatening me with violence. So. We're in Georgia, right? So it's rain is not an unusual thing.
Rain can come at any time. It's not like a jump scare like it is in California.
You folks like Calvin training? I like Calvin training. You folks like him? Anyone want to vouch for his quality as a human?
People were excited to see Calvin when he popped back up the first day.
Good. Calvin's a good trainer, and he really knows that little trick, Calvin, about sorting and then changing the portal and then coming back. I did not know that trick. You just taught me something new, and I feel very embarrassed to admit that. But he knew more than I did.
Yeah, people are saying that was a good combo. So
yeah, that's yeah. So I kind of try to keep it crazy, and Calvin keeps it real. So there you go. Calvin, anything else from you?
No, I'm good.
Cool. Thank you, everybody.
Calvin's such good look. He's got shades on. He's so good looking. We put him in the helicopter today. He wanted to take it home with him. He thought it was great. So
we will see you all tomorrow.
Hasta la vista, baby. Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir.